we are here to read out the next part of the story of the Rakshasas, and this story is taken from the folk tales of Bengal, written by Reverend Lal Bihari Dey. So let's start. Till now we came to know that Champadal somehow he managed to kill 700 Rakshasas, and he was able to rescue the princess whose name was Keshavati. Until now, we didn't know what happened further, or what happened to Shahasradal and his wife, and what happened next. So let's start. After the destruction of the 700 raw-eating monsters, Champadal and Keshavati got married together by the exchange of garlands of flowers. The princess, who had never been out of the house, naturally expressed a desire to see the outer world. They used every day to take long walks both morning and evening, and as a large river was hard by, Keshavati wished to bathe in it. The first day they went to bathe on one of the first day they went to bathe, one of Keshavati's hairs came off, and as it is the custom with women never to throw away a hair unaccompanied with something else, she tied the hair to a shell which was floating on the water, after which they returned home. In the meantime, the shell with the hair tied to it floated down the stream, and in course of time reached that ghat at which Shahasradal and his companions were in the habit of performing their ablutions. The shell passed by when Shahasradal and his friends were bathing, and he, seeing it at some distance, said to them, "Whoever succeeds in catching hold of yonder shell shall be rewarded with 100 rupees." They all swam towards it, and Shahasradal, being the fleetest swimmer, got it. On examining it, he found a hair tied to it, but such hair! He had never seen so long a hair. It was exactly 7 cubits long. The owner of this hair must be a remarkable woman, and I must see her. Such was the resolution of Shahasradal. He went home from the river in a pensive mood, and instead of proceeding to the zenana for breakfast, remained in the outer part of the palace. The queen mother, on hearing that Shahasradal was looking melancholy and had not come to breakfast, went to him and asked the reason. He showed her the hair and said he must see the woman whose head it had adorned. The queen mother said, "Very well, you shall have that lady in the palace as soon as possible. I promise you to bring her here." The queen mother told her favorite maid servant, whom she knew to be full of resources, the same who was a Rakshasi in disguise, that she must as soon as possible bring to the palace that lady who was the owner of the hair 7 cubits long. The maid servant said she would be quite able to fetch her. By her directions, a boat was built of hazelwood, the the oars of which were of Monpavan wood. The oars of which were of Monpavan wood. The boat was launched on the stream, and she went on board of it with some baskets of wicker work of curious workmanship. She also took with her some sweetmeats into which some poison had been mixed. She snapped her fingers thrice and uttered the following charm: "Boat of hazel, Or of Mon Pavan, take me to the ghat in which Keshavati bathes. No sooner that the words been uttered than the boat flew like lightning over the waters. It went on, leaving behind many a town and city. At last it stopped at the bathing palace, which the Rakshasi maid servant concluded was the bathing ghat of Keshavati. She landed with the sweetmeats in her hand. She went to the ghat of the palace and cried aloud, "Oh Keshavati, Keshavati, I am your aunt, your mother's sister. I am come to see you, my darling, after so many years. Are you in Keshavati?" The princess, on hearing these words, came out of her room, and making no doubt that she was her aunt, embraced and kissed her. They both wept rivers of joy. At least the Rakshasi maid servant did, and Keshavati followed suit through sympathy. Champadal also thought that she was the aunt of his newly married wife. They all ate and drank and took rest in the middle of the day. Champadal, as was his habit, went to sleep after breakfast. Towards afternoon, the supposed aunt said to Keshavati, "Let us both go to the river and wash ourselves." Keshavati replied, "How can we go now? My husband is sleeping." "Never mind," said the aunt. "Let him sleep on. Let me put these sweetmeats that I have brought near his bedside, that he may eat them when he gets up." They then went to the riverside close to the spot where the boat was. Keshavati, when she saw from some distance the baskets of wicker work in the boat, said, "Aunt, what beautiful things are those! I wish I could get some of them. Come, my child, come and look at them, and you can have as many as you like." Keshavati at first refused to go into the boat, but on being pressed by her aunt, she went. The moment they two were on the boat, the aunt snapped her fingers thrice and said, "Boat of hazel, oars of moon pabon, take me to the ghat in which Sahasradal bathes." As soon as these magical words were uttered, the boat moved and flew like an narrow over the waters. Keshavati was frightened and began to cry, but the boat went on, leaving behind many towns and cities, and in a trice reached the ghat where Sahasradal was in the habit of bathing. Keshavati was taken to the palace. Sahasradal admired her beauty and the length of her hair, and the ladies of the palace tried their best to comfort her, but she set up a loud cry and wanted to be taken back to her husband. At last, when she saw that she was a captive, she told the ladies of the palace that she had taken a vow that she would not see the face of any strange man for 6 months. She was then lodged apart from the rest in a small house, the window of which overlooked the road. There she spent the lifelong day and also the livelong night, for she had very little sleep in sighing and weeping. In the meantime, when Champadal awoke from sleep, he was distracted with grief at not finding his wife. He now thought that the woman who pretended to be his wife's aunt was a cheat and an impostor, and that she must have carried away Keshavati. He did not eat the sweetmeats, suspecting they might be poisoned. He threw one of them to a cow which uh, threw he threw one of them to a crow, which the moment it ate it ate it, dropped down dead. He was now the more confirmed in his unfavorable opinion of the pretended aunt. Maddened with grief, he rushed out of the house and determined to go whithersoever his eyes might lead him. Like a madman, blubbering, O Keshavati, O Keshavati. He travelled on foot day after day, not knowing whither he went. 6 months were spent in this wearisome travelling, when at the end of that period he reached the capital of Sahasradal. He was passing by the palace gate when the sigh and wailings of a woman sitting at the window of a house on the roadside attracted his attention. One moment's look and they recognized each other. They continued to hold secret communications. Champadal heard everything, including the story of her woe, the period of which was to terminate the following day. It is customary on the fulfillment of a vow for some learned Brahman to take public recitations of events connected with the vow and the person who makes it. It was settled that Champadal should take upon himself the functions of the reciter. Accordingly, next morning, when it was proclaimed by beat of drum that the king wanted a learned Brahman who could recite the story of Keshavati on the fulfillment of her vow, Champadal touched the drum and said that he would make the recitation. Next morning, a gorgeous assembly was held in the courtyard of the palace under a huge canopy of silk. The old king Sahasradal, all the courtiers and the learned Brahmans of the country were present there. Keshavati was also there behind a screen that she might not be exposed to the rude gaze of the people. Champadal, the reciter, sitting on a dais, began the story of Keshavati as we have related it from the beginning, commencing with the words, there was a poor and half-witted Brahman, etc. As he was going on with the story, the reciter every now and then asked Keshavati behind the screen whether the story was correct, to which question she as often replied, quite correct. Go on, Brahman. During the recitation of the story, the Rakshasi maid servant grew pale as she perceived that her real character was discovered, and Sahasradal was astonished at the knowledge of the reciter regarding the history of his own life. The moment the story was finished, Sahasradal jumped up from his seat and, embracing the reciter, said, you can be none other than my brother Champadal. Then the prince, inflamed with rage, ordered the maidservant into his presence. A large hole as deep as the height of a man was dug in the ground. The maidservant was put into it in a standing posture. Prickly, thrown up, prickly thorn was heaped around her up to the crown of her head. In this wise was the maidservant buried alive. After this, Sahasradal and his princess and Champadal and Keshavati lived happily together many years. So, thus my story endeth. The Natya throne withered. So, today I am going to finish this story by the Bengali recitation. The Bengali form of this poem. আমার কথাটি ফুরলো নোটে গাছটি মুরলো কেন রে নোটে মুরলি গরু কেন খড় খায় না কেন রে গরু খড় খাস না রাখাল কেন ঘাস দেয় না কেন রে রাখাল ঘাস দিস না কেন বউ ভাত দেয় না কেন রে বউ ভাত দিস না কেন খোকা কাঁদে কেন রে খোকা কাঁদিস পিঁপড়ে কেন কামড়ায় Canary পিঁপড়ে কামড়াস? Coot, coot, coot. So, this is it. We will meet again tomorrow with the beginning of a new story. Till then, bye bye.